Big day for Liverpool. Big win. 2 wins in a week. Ekitique scoring 2 goals in consecutive Premier League games. Salah breaking records. But the overarching moment that I took from today's game was when the game ended and the DJ at Liverpool decided to play that James song. You know that song, Oh Sit Down, that Liverpool have remixed to be Mo Salah running down the wing. They played that. They played that on the loudspeaker. They played that on the tannoy. And I feel like there's potentially something symbolic there. Then, off the back of the DJ choosing to play that song, you watch Mohamed Salah doing a sort of lap of honour, a lap of appreciation. Obviously, he's leaving to go off to AFCON, but it felt to me like there was something symbolic there. It felt to me like there was something slightly deeper going on. You know, he was applauding the Liverpool fans. He was pointing to his chest. He was pointing to the liver bird upon his heart. But I just wonder if this is actually goodbye. It could be just goodbye. Goodbye because he's going to play for Egypt at AFCON. Or if it was goodbye. We don't know if he will return to Merseyside. That is still massively up for debate. And maybe he will. You know, he's got a big assist today. He's back. Apparently there is reconciliation with Arne Slot. They are friends again. And there is no doubt in my mind that he could still contribute to this Liverpool team. He obviously wanted to start. He was on the bench. He was desperate to get on the pitch. And there is no doubt that a player of Mohamed Salah's quality could start. Now look, his conduct over the past 7 days, in my opinion, has been poor. I don't think that he has covered himself in glory. I don't think he's handled it well. I think speaking to the press in the way that he did was low. But players make mistakes. It doesn't mean that there isn't a future for him at the club. You know, there was a time when John Terry was talking about signing for Man City. He's still one of Chelsea's greatest ever, and I will fight his corner always. Players do make mistakes. Players do have these moments. Players are emotional footballers. They are elite level athletes, and the mentality that gets them to the very top of the game is sometimes the mentality that creates a situation where they don't necessarily behave in the ideal way. But Mohamed Salah is undoubtedly a top-class player, and there were moments today where the old Mohamed Salah sort of jinking in from the right. You know, that left foot shot that you just think he's going to unleash any minute. And you always think of that goal that he scored against us. Cutting in from the right, pinging it into the far corner in front of the Kop, and Liverpool ultimately going on to win the game. We saw a whisper of that, but look, he didn't hit the heights. He hasn't hit those heights this season. And the day actually belongs to Hugo Ekitique, yet again. You know, scoring twice, winning the game for Liverpool. He's such a good player. He's been such a shrewd signing. And you've got to think that he was kind of a last-minute signing. Not necessarily a panic signing, but Hugo Ekitique had practically signed for Newcastle until Liverpool went in and righted that wrong. He had basically signed for Newcastle. And yet he has been the jewel in the crown of all of the signings that have signed for Liverpool in their Galactico window. It was an outrageously good signing, and he has looked sensational. And look, there's no doubt, Arne Slot's team are obviously not at their best, but they played a Brighton side who they didn't take their chances. It was enough. Brighton had something, but ultimately it didn't really matter. You know, sometimes with football, it's about the performance. It's about are your players clicking? Are you adopting the philosophy of the manager? Are you playing as one? And sometimes it's literally about just finding a win, finding a way to win the game. And Liverpool today desperately needed to win the game, and they did. And Ekitique was the reason that they found that victory. It was huge. You know, only Haaland and the boy at Brentford, that Igor Thiago, have now scored more league goals than him. Like, he's got 7 league goals. Bearing in mind that he's not actually the first name on the team sheet, it's huge quite how well he's doing. And, you know, the fact that he is now scoring, Liverpool are finding their rhythm again. They're on a nice run of fixtures now before they play Arsenal. Look, the league title probably feels a way off. They're not going to do that. But they will now make a real fist of the top 4. And if they can, you know, win a couple more games in a row, they're unbeaten for a while now. Big wins this week. Hugo Ekitique firing. It feels like they have ridden this storm. You know, they are over the stormiest weather. And that is huge when you think about what they were going through, a week or so ago. You know, it was unbelievably good from Liverpool today. Unbelievably good from Ekitique. Salah didn't have his best game. You know, I think it's fair to say that Kadioglu kind of had the best of it. I think that he basically had Salah sewn up. But it won't matter to Liverpool because it was simply about finding a victory. It's been a week of tumult. It's been very stressful. And they have found a way to navigate that. And that is the most important. But it kind of just becomes a conversation now about Mohamed Salah. Like, imagine now if he is actually gone. if Mohamed Salah is no longer a Premier League player, if he has played his last game for Liverpool, if we do not see him running that touchline at Anfield again, he will be cast in history as one of the best to have ever played in the Premier League, I think. His record breaking is simply surreal. And you think of all of the moments, you think of what he's done for that club. You know, when he arrived, it was a fairly underwhelming signing. And he has gone on to score more goals for Liverpool than Billy Liddell. And you think about what Billy Liddell represented. You know, they used to call Liverpool Liddellpool when he was playing. More goals for Liverpool than Kenny Dalglish. More goals for Liverpool than Steven Gerrard. That is the kind of company. Ian St. John, Roger Hunt, Mohamed Salah has outscored all of them. And you always cast your mind back to that first season. You know, that first season when he got, 44 goals? That's the one that I always think of. But the amazing thing about Mohamed Salah's career at Liverpool is that you can almost see it as Twin Peaks. Like, we could have a debate and we could really argue it and we could both think that we're right. And neither of us would be wrong. You could say that the best version of Mohamed Salah occurred under Jurgen Klopp. I would say that the best version of Mohamed Salah, we observed it under Arne Slot. And you could argue them both. You know, he had that kind of twin peak. You know, I would argue that it was Slot, but when you think about how good he was under Klopp, maybe the 2019 season when Liverpool got to the Champions League final, the one in Kiev, the Dua Lipa one. Like, he was unreal. He was absolutely unreal. And you think of the icons now that he scored more Premier League goals more Premier League goals than Thierry Henry. You know, you think, like, just record after record. He broke more records today, by the way. And he really is a kind of player that should be looked at as a Premier League icon. He will go down in history. Like, he's a player that had the Midas touch. Just instead of turning everything into gold, he turned them into goals. That is how good he has been for Liverpool. And it's a shame because we like to have these icons in our league. And I think that we should always feel very blessed that we were the ones that got to watch. Mohamed Salah, at his pacey, electrifying, clinical best, was a sight to behold. Capable of anything. And, you know, people would say, wrongly, sort of clumsy on the ball or whatever. Like, when he was running with the ball at that sort of pace, he's almost like the only comparative I can think is kind of like Robin. You know, when Robin was at Chelsea and I was young and I'd be at Stamford Bridge, or I remember being at Craven Cottage and Robin pick up the ball and he was dazzling. Every single time Robin got the ball, you're like, this is it. I remember being at Ewood Park, Aaron Mokoena, like, couldn't live with him. Ended up fouling him. It was like a sight to behold. And I think that Mohamed Salah is that. You know, when you think about what he did for Liverpool, what he won with Liverpool, and then his record in big goals. Like, you think, how many times did he score against Manchester City in their rivalry? You know, they were the nemesis for one another. How many times did he score against them? Liverpool's biggest rival, Manchester United. How many times did he score against Manchester United? Arsenal, how many times did he score against Arsenal? Obviously scored against us. Like, he really did have it all. And if he has now gone, you just got to cast him as like a Premier League great and consider yourself lucky that you've seen him play. Because we are running out of icons. You know, the beautiful footballers, the Mavericks, are not really there. I always think of a story with regard to Mohamed Salah. Have you heard that Ben Foster one? I think Liverpool battered Watford. I think it ended up 5-1 or something like that. And at the end of the game, rather than kind of celebrating or whatever, Mohamed Salah makes a beeline for Ben Foster. Like, why is he charging after the Watford goalkeeper? What on earth can the victor and the victorious team have to say to the goalkeeper that's just conceded 5? Why on earth? Anyway, he goes over and he's kind of whispering, doing his thing. And Ben Foster spoke afterwards, didn't he? And he told the story. Do you know what Salah was asking him? What Salah was desperate to find out? He wanted to find out, hypothetically, where would Ben Foster have dived if Liverpool had got a penalty in that game? Like, always preparing, always thinking of the next challenge, always thinking of the next moment, rather than just resting on his laurels and celebrating a victory, going out for dinner or whatever. Instead of doing that, what has he done? Charged after Ben Foster and gone, listen, mate, in the 88th minute, if a penalty was given and I was taking it, where would you have dived? Just so that I can think about this situation, this conversation, because it may help me out next week. Now, true champions mentality. And look, I don't like the way that he's behaved of late. I think he's got it wrong. I think talking to the press in the way that he did was poor. Saying that Liverpool threw him under the bus was just factually incorrect and outright rude on the players and the manager. But these mistakes happen. John Terry was nearly a Man City player, and I certainly don't hold that against him. Interesting, isn't it? But ultimately, big win for Liverpool. Will Mohamed Salah play for Liverpool again, though? That is the overarching theme here. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Will you do me a favour? If you have enjoyed this video, please, 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 will you click subscribe? It would be my honour to welcome you into this community. Thank you so much for watching. Give the video a like if you've enjoyed it, and I will see you in a bit. Ta-da.